In this section, we'll talk about keywords, identifiers, punctuation, operators, and syntax in programming languages. Most languages have keywords. Keywords are part of the vocabulary of a programming language. In most languages, the keywords are also reserved. This means that you, the programmer, cannot redefine their meaning, and you can't use them in a way in which they were not intended. C++ has lots of keywords. In a browser, I've opened up a web page for cppreference.com that lists the C++ keywords. Without a frame of reference, it's difficult to know that this is a lot of keywords. There are around 90 keywords in C++. Java has around 50. C has 32, and Python has 33. 90 is a lot of keywords. Now, in general, the more keywords that a language has, the more complex the programming language grammar. However, there are many keywords in C++ that are rarely used. I've been using C++ for a very long time, and there are some keywords in this list that I've never used. There's no need to sit down and memorize all these keywords. We'll use the keywords as we need them, and you'll learn them along the way. Notice that some of the keywords in this list we've already used. For example, we've used int and we've used return. Here's int right here, and here's return right here. We used that in our first program. Also notice that pound include, main, favorite number, standard, endline, cin, and cout are not in this list. That's because they're not keywords. We'll talk about them next. What's important to remember here is that C++ has a set of keywords that it's defined in the language, and these words are reserved. Now let's go to CodeLight and see the reserved words in our first program. So now I'm back in CodeLight, and I'm looking at the same program that we did in the previous section, the one with the favorite number. You can see that I mentioned that main and pound include and favorite number and so forth were not keywords. Same with standard out, cout, cin, and so forth, and endline, all of these. These are not keywords. These are called identifiers. And there's an important distinction between identifiers and keywords. An identifier is something that the programmer names. So these names have been created by programmers to create something that represents something meaningful to them. There are rules about how to name identifiers, and we'll go into all those in a later section. C++ also has operators. It's got a lot of operators. It's got the operators that you're used to, your addition, multiplication, subtraction, division, and so forth. But in this case, we're using some non-standard operators. For example, this guy right here, that little chevron, is the stream insertion operator. We're going to insert whatever's on the right-hand side of it into that stream. In this case, it's an output stream that gets displayed to the console. Same thing with the string extraction operator. This one takes something from the console and stores it into a variable, in this case, favorite number. There's also that double colon right here. That's the scope resolution operator. We'll talk about all of these operators as we go on to section 9 in the course. C++ also has punctuation. Things like semicolons at the end of statements, curlies, open and close quotes, parentheses. It's got all kinds of punctuation. When you put all of these elements together in a program, you end up with something called syntax. Syntax is the syntax of the programming language, the structure and the meaning of what you want the compiler to understand. The compiler is taking your code and translating it to machine code, and it's translating it based on what you told it you wanted to be done. It's not going to guess. This may sound a little intimidating at this point, but it comes pretty quickly with a little bit of practice. Well, that completes this video. In the next video, we'll talk about the C++ preprocessor, and we'll learn more about that preprocessor directive, pound include.